You think you're in control. You tell yourself you can stop anytime. But right now, something is hijacking your brain and you don't even know it's happening. Addiction is not about willpower. It's about neuroscience. Every scroll, every drink, every hit of dopamine is rewiring the architecture of your mind. And here's the terrifying part. By the time you realize you're addicted, the addiction has already changed who you are. Today, we're going deep into the dark psychology of addiction, not the surface-level stuff they teach you in health class. We're talking about the actual mechanisms, how your brain gets hijacked, why willpower always fails, and most importantly, how to break free. This isn't just about drugs or alcohol. This is about the invisible chains binding you to your phone, your work, your relationships, your own destructive patterns. Let's begin. The hijacked brain. Your brain didn't evolve for the modern world. It evolved for scarcity, for survival, for finding food and avoiding predators. And at the center of this ancient system sits a tiny region called the nucleus accumbens, your brain's reward center. When something feels good, this region floods with dopamine. And here's what nobody tells you. Dopamine isn't about pleasure. Dopamine is not about getting what you want. It's about wanting itself. It's about anticipation. It's about desire. It's about that feeling of needing more. When you take a substance or engage in an addictive behavior, dopamine spikes far beyond anything natural. We're talking 2 to 10 times normal levels. Your brain registers this as important, survival level important, so it starts making changes. It reduces dopamine receptors. It weakens your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making and impulse control. It literally rewires itself to prioritize the addiction above everything else, above food, above relationships, above your own survival. This is called neuroplasticity working against you. But understanding this leads us to something even more disturbing. The tolerance trap. Here's where addiction becomes a prison. As your brain downregulates those dopamine receptors, something terrifying happens. Normal pleasures stop working. That sunset that used to fill you with wonder, nothing. That conversation with a friend, boring. The music you loved, flat. Anhedonia, the inability to feel. This is called anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure from normal activities. Your brain has recalibrated. The addiction has become your new baseline. And now you need more just to feel normal. Not good. Normal. This is tolerance. The chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. Dr. Anna Lemke, author of Dopamine Nation, explains that every high is followed by an equal and opposite low. The higher the spike, the deeper the crash. And your brain, desperate to maintain balance, keeps raising the threshold. So you need more, and more, and more. Now that you see this pattern working in yourself, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring the depths of your psyche with me. There's so much more to uncover, because the tolerance trap leads directly into something even darker, the withdrawal lie. Most people think withdrawal is the hard part. They imagine the physical symptoms, the shaking, the sweating, the nausea. But here's what they don't understand. Physical withdrawal typically lasts days to weeks. Psychological withdrawal can last months, years, sometimes forever. Craving, the brain remembers. It has carved neural pathways so deep that certain triggers, a smell, a song, a place, a feeling, can instantly activate the addiction circuitry decades later. This is called incentive sensitization. The wanting becomes permanent even when the liking has faded. Think about that. You can reach a point where you no longer even enjoy the thing you're addicted to, but you still crave it with every fiber of your being. Your brain has been reprogrammed to want what destroys you. Freud called it the death drive, thanatos, this mysterious force that pulls us towards self-destruction. And modern neuroscience is proving him right. There's a part of your brain that will sacrifice everything, your health, your relationships, your future, for one more hit of dopamine. But this leads us to something even more disturbing about why we become addicted in the first place. The wound beneath. Dr. Gabor Mate spent decades working with severely addicted patients, and he discovered something that changed everything we thought we knew about addiction. The question is not why the addiction, But why the pain? Addiction is almost never about the substance. It's about what the substance does. It numbs pain. It fills emptiness. It provides what was missing. Look at the childhood histories of addicts and you'll find trauma, neglect, abuse, emotional abandonment, attachment wounds. Not every traumatized person becomes an addict, but every addict was traumatized. The ACE study, Adverse Childhood Experiences, found that a child with 6 or more traumatic experiences is 46 times more likely to become an injection drug user. 46 times. This isn't about weakness or moral failing. This is about a child's brain learning that the world is unsafe, that their needs won't be met, that they must find some way, any way, to regulate overwhelming emotions. Pain seeks relief. The addiction isn't the problem. It's the attempted solution. The problem is the wound that never healed, and understanding this changes how we must approach recovery. Why willpower fails. Every addict has tried willpower. Every addict has failed, and every failure reinforces the shame spiral that drives them deeper into addiction. But here's what the self-help industry won't tell you. Willpower is finite. Your prefrontal cortex, the seat of willpower and decision-making, uses glucose as fuel. It gets tired, it gets depleted, and guess what addiction does? It weakens the prefrontal cortex while strengthening the limbic system, the emotional, impulsive brain. You're bringing a knife to a gunfight. The prefrontal cortex is like a muscle that can be exhausted. Studies show that after exerting self-control in one area, people have significantly less ability to exert it in another. This is called ego depletion. So when you're stressed, tired, hungry, lonely, or emotionally overwhelmed, exactly when cravings hit hardest, your willpower is at its lowest. The game is rigged. You cannot think your way out of addiction because the thinking part of your brain has been compromised. You need a completely different approach. And this brings us to what actually works. The opposite of addiction. Johann Hari traveled the world studying addiction, and he found something that contradicts everything we've been taught. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. Consider the rat park experiment. Rats alone in cages, given access to drug-laced water, will use until they die. But rats in enriched environments with other rats, toys, and activities, they barely touch the drugs. Isolation breeds addiction. Now look at our society. We're more connected digitally than ever, yet loneliness has reached epidemic proportions. We've replaced community with consumption, face-to-face connection with screen time, meaningful work with meaningless scrolling. Is it any wonder addiction rates are skyrocketing? The Portuguese decriminalized all drugs in 2001. Instead of punishment, they offered connection, housing, jobs, community, purpose. Drug use dropped by 50%. Human connection is the antidote to the isolation that fuels addiction. Your nervous system was designed for co-regulation, for being seen, heard, and held. When that need goes unmet, you'll find something, anything, to fill the void. But knowing this isn't enough. You need to understand what happens in the brain when recovery actually works. Rewiring the brain. Here's the good news that nobody emphasizes enough. The same neuroplasticity that created the addiction can undo it. Your brain can heal. Neuroplasticity works both ways, destruction and reconstruction, but it requires time, strategy, and understanding. First, you need at least 90 days of abstinence for dopamine receptors to begin normalizing. This is why the first 3 months are critical. Your brain is literally regrowing its capacity for natural pleasure. Second, you need replacement behaviors that provide healthy dopamine, exercise, creative expression, deep conversation, meaningful work. Replace, don't just remove. Third, you need to address the underlying wound. Without processing the pain that drove the addiction, you'll simply find a new addiction. Swap alcohol for workaholism. Swap drugs for shopping. The demon just changes masks. Neurons that fire together wire together. Every time you choose differently, you weaken the old pathway and strengthen the new one. Recovery isn't just stopping, it's actively building a new brain, a new identity, a new life. And this connects directly to something unexpected about the nature of identity itself. Identity death. This is the part nobody talks about. Recovery requires the death of who you were. The addicted self must die for the recovered self to be born. Your addiction became your identity. It determined your friends, your routines, your coping mechanisms, your sense of self. When you remove it, there's a void, an existential emptiness. Who are you without it? Nothing. And that terrifying nothing is why so many people relapse. Better the devil you know than the void of not knowing who you are at all. Jung understood this. He called it the process of individuation, becoming who you truly are by integrating all the fragmented parts of yourself, including the addict, not killing it, integrating it. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The addiction served a purpose. It protected you from unbearable pain. It gave you identity when you had none. To truly recover, you must honor what it gave you while building something greater. Like the phoenix, you must burn completely before you can rise. But this transformation requires confronting the most uncomfortable truth of all, the hidden payoff. Every addiction has a hidden payoff, something it gives you that you're terrified to lose. This is called secondary gain, and until you acknowledge it, recovery is impossible. What does your addiction give you? Maybe it gives you an excuse to fail, to not try, to not face the terror of your own potential. Maybe it gives you an identity, a community, a way to belong. Maybe it gives you control. In a chaotic world, the ritual of addiction provides predictability. The thing you're most afraid to lose is the key to your prison. I've seen people unconsciously sabotage their recovery because sobriety meant facing a marriage that had been dead for years, because success meant outgrowing the family that needed them small, because healing meant having no excuse left for their life. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. What is your addiction protecting you from? What would you have to face if you healed? The answer to these questions is the real work, and this brings us to the final truth about breaking free. The path forward. Recovery is not a destination. It's a continuous process of becoming. 1. Understand your brain's hijacking. 2. Address the wound beneath. 3. Build genuine connection. 4. Replace with healthy dopamine. 5. Create a new identity. These aren't steps you complete and forget. They're practices you return to again and again for the rest of your life. And that's okay. Because here's what recovered addicts know that others don't. The struggle creates depth. The wound, when healed, becomes wisdom. The darkness, when integrated, becomes compassion. Your greatest suffering can become your greatest gift to the world. Every moment you choose differently, you prove that change is possible, that the brain can heal, that the past doesn't have to determine the future. You are not your addiction. You are the awareness watching the addiction, the consciousness that can observe the craving without obeying it, the self that existed before the substance and will exist long after, and that self is calling you home. The path forward isn't easy, but it's the only path that leads somewhere worth going. Addiction is not a moral failure. It's not weakness. It's not a choice in the way most people understand choice. It's a brain that learned to survive in the only way it knew how. The wound is the place where the light enters you. Understanding the dark psychology of addiction doesn't excuse the harm it causes, but it does open the door to real healing, the kind that addresses root causes, not just symptoms. If something in this video resonated with you, if you saw yourself in these patterns, know that recognition is the first step. The brain that learned addiction can learn recovery. The identity built on substance can be rebuilt on purpose. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. If you made it this far, comment chains broken if you're ready to understand your own patterns more deeply. Welcome to the Psyche Project. If this gave you something to think about, share it with someone who might be struggling. Subscribe for more. Until next time, keep exploring your psyche.